Hello, welcome to tonight's meeting. Can we go ahead and do roll call, Ms. Laura?
Yes. Member Cianciola?
Present.
Member Carr is absent.
Thank you.
Member Lamb?
Here.
Member Roscoe is absent. Member Pretty?
I'm here.
Member Quilty is
Absent for the
absent. Member Domi?
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good thing.
Yeah, have a quorum.
You do have a quorum.
Okay, are there any comments on closed session?
No, there are not.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and recess to closed session. All right, we're gonna go ahead and recall back to open session. We did have member Quilty join us. I don't know, do we need to do another roll call?
Laura can just note that he arrived in time for closed session.
Perfect, thank you. All right, can we go ahead and stand for the pledge of allegiance, please? Salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Are there any reorganization, any requests for reorganization
I have questions
on the consent agenda?
on the consent agenda.
Okay, which ones?
Just a moment, please.
In the meantime, there's nothing to report out of closed session.
I believe it's on consent, M.
Course proposal,
Mm-hmm.
is that it?
That's it.
Perfect. All right, we'll go ahead and take that separately.
Thank you.
Okay, reports, 8A, public hearing on LCAP with local indicators. Do we need to open the public hearing?
Yes.
Public hearing is open. There's no comments. Are there any comments on? No?
No, you need to leave it open while he does this.
Good evening, board, public. It's good to be here this evening. I'm Tanner Guzman, Assistant Superintendent Services, and I'm going to present our draft form of the LCAP for 24-25. Just want to start off with, I always like to start at the end, so this is where, we want our kids to get to. Just graduating, excitement, and all those kids have a different path as they leave high school. Some of them are going to military. We got to see a lot of military recognition at the graduations. Some are going to college. Some are going to the workforce. And so I just want to emphasize that idea of multiple opportunities for our kids, not just one path, as we move forward with the presentation of the LCAP. Estimated projections, and you're going to get more of this fun after me with Mr. Bentley. But I do want to start off, the bolded number right there is our supplemental concentration funds that we get from the state. That's based on our enrollment of high need students, our they call them unduplicated student counts. Foster youth, English learners, and our low income students in our school district. And that's what generates these funds for our LCAP. As I go along, I'll kind of take some pauses because there's a lot of information. And so if you have questions, just feel free to jump in and ask any questions, clarifying questions. So there's a few new LCAP requirements this year. One of them is something called an equity multiplier goal. Equity multiplier is in response to new legislation in 23-24. And basically it's school site funding calculation, and it's based on your stability rate of students. So we have two schools, YCAA and Cal Continuation School. And as we all know, those students go in and out of those schools, and that's a stability rate calculation. There's a lot of math inherent in that calculation. So that's one piece of math they use for that calculation, and it has to be greater than 25% from each school year, kids coming and going to those sites. And as we know, those kids come from our comprehensive sites typically, and they go to YCIA. They might come back junior or senior year to finish schooling at the comprehensive site. So that's a stability rate, kind of in a nutshell. And in addition, they look at your economically disadvantaged student population. It has to be 70% or greater. And they have this funding calculation, and based on that, they give specific school sites more funding. So this year we got funding for YCIA and for Albert Hall High School. And they look at the dashboard metrics. The LCAP is driven by the California dashboard. That is a requirement. So as we develop the LCAP, we have to use dashboard indicators to drive data for the LCAP. So for YCAA, it's a little different because that's independent study. And at YCAA, they get their attendance through work completion. And so chronic absenteeism, graduation rate, and CCI are the three indicators that landed YCAA and equity multiplier. CCI is college career indicator. There's a lot of acronyms in education, and we really like it. Just kind of like the military, there's tons of acronyms. Albert Hall High School, similarly, they have their graduation rate, college career indicator, and suspicion rate. And once again, these are very low numbers because those are a low amount of students at those schools. So at a suspension rate, you can have 3 kids suspended out of high school, your rate's gonna go higher. So graduation rate at Albert Hall High School, once again, we do send some of our students from River Valley and Yuba City High School over to HiSET. And the students in the HiSET program are getting a credential, which is similar to a GED, but they still count as a non-grad. And so that, although it says their graduation rate's kind of struggling at 68% at Albert Powell, that's kind of one of the smaller reasons why they have that graduation rate. So they would probably be around 80%, but we want those kids to leave high school with something tangible, and so we send them to Albert Powell for HiSET.
Just a question, isn't the credential a little bit, it's a step above the GED?
Yeah, it counts
The
more,
military work
it
stuff
has more
there.
leverage nationally. Obviously GED, you can still get in the military, but it has more leverage, it does.
And where are the economic indicators coming from? How do we get those numbers?
They actually come from CalPADS. So our school district uses ARIES. It's called it's an SIS, Student Information System. And the state has CalPADS, and they actually pull that information from our student information system.
Yeah, so then who puts it in our student information system?
We do when we register kids. And
Okay, so then the parents write their annual income.
Yes.
Okay, so it's based on whatever they say.
Yeah, they have I don't have it with me in front of me, but they have 3 specific areas of income that would qualify you for free and reduced lunch. And that would indicate whether you're unduplicated in terms of low income.
Okay, but it's not like a tax return or a W-2 or anything like that. It's just whatever they put on
That's what
that
they
form.
put. Yeah. And it's more challenging now because every student gets free lunch.
Right.
Yeah, so before, if you wanted to qualify for that, you really had to turn that in. So as a school district now, we have to be a lot more on it really to get those forms turned in to qualify for that, because that number back here, okay, let's go. That number right there, 34,963, a humongous indicator of that are those families. So if we have less unduplicated count students, that number is greatly decreased. So that's why it's really important at the beginning of the school year. After July 1 is the date where you can start collecting those forms. And we actually have it now, when parents fill it out, they have to kind of complete that. And that's really important because we get less money if we have less forms filled out. So it actually has a direct effect on our budget.
But it is all self-reporting.
Thank you.
Even for meals, if you don't have that information, you only get a certain amount of reimbursement.
So this year's LCAP, the board developed in 3 goals this year, 3 new board goals. And so those were kind of vertically articulated with our school sites, and we have those right there: student support, optimal potential with academic and social support, goal 2 is literacy and math. And that directly spans across, you look at all of our data, those are 2 humongous content areas we have to continue to focus on. And then lastly, we have the engagement piece. Some of the key words in that goal are inclusion, connectedness, involvement. So on the top there, you see the priorities. The LCAP has priorities as well, and so we listed those along with the goals, so we meet all of those. And then once again, so in the LCAP, it's 67 pages. These are the actions, so we have 5 goals, 3 of them are your board goals that are very vertically articulated with our school sites, and then the 2 other goals are the equity multiplier goals, one for Albert Powell and one for YCAA, which has to be specifically in the LCAP this year. So focus on goal 1. Now I'm going to kind of highlight some things as we go along. Like I said, when I pause, you can ask questions if you have questions about the specific action items in the goal. Some of these are a little similar to some of our previous goals, but we have a lot of staffing we find through the LCAP. And so like the first goal there, we have 32 counselors and 7 social workers. Feedback greatly from our staff, our parents, and our students indicated a strong support for continuing providing a very robust counseling program in our school district to support our kids. So that's something, that is a big portion of the actual 4.6 million of that first action item. You notice additional things, behavior staffing, we do support our behaviorists who work with our special education students. They kind of help provide behavior intervention plans for students. So that's something additional in that goal. And professional development, we did a lot of our surveying with our teachers, and they indicated, and I agree, just from being on campuses, a really strong focus on instructional practices for behavior management, classroom management, and trauma-informed practices. And so there was a lot of feedback from our LCAP advisory committee and our teachers that this was something they really wanted targeted more for professional development, which directly then impacts the kids in their class, which is what we want to focus on for this plan. Jasmine?
Whenever you're at a good stopping point. This is probably something that maybe you and I can talk about afterwards, but just a question to put in the back of your mind. When we're setting these funds, obviously this is like a projection, right? It's not set in stone that we're gonna spend exactly this amount of money. But the question that comes up a lot of times when we're talking about funding for me personally is that we're making decisions that are equitable across the schools. But I know that in this particular case, like when we're talking about like the social emotional needs of kids and the counseling supports, obviously we do have schools that at any given time may have an influx of needs and whatnot. I just wanna touch base on, are we ensuring that the resources are divvied up equitably and if there is a need for an increase in funding that we're able to allocate from a different resource or whatever as appropriate.
Yeah, so I'd say with the counseling program, we have it equitably allocated pretty well with all of our school sites having a counselor. And we have something new this year is we are pushing in more social workers to the high schools, at least a day a week for the social workers, just because we see an additional need there. We do have extra funding, so we do have funds through some of the grants we have. If we saw a need for that, we would definitely be able to look at the data to see which indicates that need and to work with that.
I guess more like probably one that is easier to conceptualize is like a student engagement piece, right? And how we're getting kids engaged and whatnot. And to me, that's easier to translate money going to different schools for that. So maybe we can touch base afterwards.
And part of that is we do, and I'll get to the, I think 1.4, at the end of each of these goals, we have a site fund allocation. So like local control at the school site obviously is a site council. They have a body of teachers, staff, and students and parents on that committee, which decide what's best for that specific school based on that school's data. Bridge Street, for example, would be a good example, right? Gray Avenue, we know some schools have a lot more struggle with some of the student populations. So they actually have funds allocated from the LCAP for their sites. They can kind of pinpoint and target more specific to their school sites.
Thank you.
And this goes back to student engagement. So technologies, as you guys know from being this whole year about technology and our board meetings, we have a lot of technology in our district and a lot of needs for technology. So this past year, we do have funds allocated for technology. A lot of those would be hotspots for students, Chromebook replacement cycles. A lot of our tech resources we have, a lot of our teachers use different platforms to engage kids in the classroom. And so we use that money to pay for that. So site licenses, teacher licenses, student licenses, that's part of the school as well. We do have a separate goal, and goal 3 for cameras and security cameras, which is still technology, but we kind of divided that up based on student safety. Academic support, like I said, a lot of these goals have, staffing is a huge component of it. So if you look at 1.3, I wasn't here when this happened, but we have assistant principals funded through our LCAP because there's a strong need to have more support at the school sites with assistant principals. So our assistant principals are supported through the LCAP. We support our ELD coordinators, we don't currently have one. We support our CTE coordinators, our data and assessment coordinators, that is funded strictly through our LCAP. PE specialists we hired, they help provide collaboration time release for our teachers, and they obviously provide us substantial support for our students in elementary and middle school PE. Obviously we know those kids need to get out and run and get out and get exercise and get that balance in an educational environment. We have lead teachers at each school site in their content areas who work in grade level teams and look at student learning data to inform their instructional practices. And so we have teachers who are content leads, and we support their efforts to meet together to collaborate around student learning needs. 1.4 is college career readiness. Credit recovery is not the solution for everything, but it is one Band-Aid that we do use to help kids who are struggling to recover credits to graduate high school. So we do use Ingenuity still to help some of the students do that. It doesn't work for every student, nothing does. You have to kind of find out what works best for each student. But it is something that we do work with our kids who are struggling. Dual enrollment in AP courses for unduplicated students. We want to continue looking at options. You'll see two courses later on consent on Springboard AP, grade 7 and grade 8. That would be a good example of what we would use this funding for to support the teacher training and the implementation of those 2 courses. In addition to other courses we would add to our school sites. That also pays for the professional development training for AP and dual enrollment. CTE, we have a huge component of CTE. We have a phenomenal CTE program in our district. We offer multiple pathways to kids. You can go to Yuba City High School and you can learn how to do brakes on a car. Maybe not my brakes right now, we wait till they're graduated, but or you can go and do sports medicine at either high school. We just met with 2 sports medicine teachers today. They're training kids how to tape ankles, how to be in the trenches in sports medicine. So I'm really proud of that offering we have in our district. But with that, obviously comes a significant cost for our teaching staff. And so this specific goal, 3.5 million of that goal right there is our CTE pathways in our high schools and our teaching staff. We do support middle school and high school CTE programs in terms of resources. We do have CTID and we have Perkins, which are a state and a federal fund we use for CTE, but we also support it with about 160,000 through LCAP. And lastly, I mentioned E. We provide money to our school sites based on their single school plans to target the needs at their school sites based on their specific school needs at each school site or district. That's where we go on.
Let's go.
I know.
Greg is excited.
So goal 2. So I totally love math literacy. So this was like one of my favorite ones to work on. I don't know. I'm totally nerding out here. But it's a really big need in our district. Kids need to be able to read and write and speak. I mean, that's a huge need in our nationally in our state in our school district.
Yeah.
So a lot of it, we have professional development as part of this. The big chunk of that is coaching, staffing. We do maintain our own teacher induction program. In this specific LCAP, we're actually not paying for that through the LCAP. It's non-contributing, so we're paying through that through Title IV. We were able to work on reallocating some of the money. Also, we have our 3 professional development days are funded through LCAP, so that's $1.4 million, part of that $3.7 million. Working with special education, one of our groups who are in need of a lot of support is our students with disabilities. They're 142 points below standard in ELA. That's in reading, that's in writing, and that's in speaking and listening. So we want to reinvigorate our co-teaching program, bring back some more professional development for our teachers on that, so we can get those kids more up to near standard. So that's why we really included that in there, because those students are one of our greatest needs in literacy. Then it would be our EL students, our foster youth students. The list kind of goes on, but that's our greatest one right there, special students with disabilities. So.
Okay, Tino, just an observation and a request. When you talk about co-teaching, I think that's a really important model. But I don't believe we still are very adept at providing good professional development for the teacher and co-teacher to work together. I know that when you have a push-in, a special ed push-in teacher in your classroom as a general ed teacher, a lot of times you have absolutely no idea what the person's job is, what their responsibilities are, what you're supposed to do as you work together. There's really never been much professional development for the teacher and co-teacher together to understand what it is they're supposed to do. I know that some teachers don't know the difference between a special ed teacher push-in and a paraeducator push-in. There's really almost no difference in the day-to-day workings of your classroom. And that's kind of a shame. So perhaps with some of this money for professional development, it could be allocated so that people who are doing a co-teaching model can actually have some time to work together and figure out how to co-teach. Because that would be, I think, the best bang for the buck in that model.
Yeah, and I did meet with Liz David about that specific question, because it's basically a marriage, honestly, in the classroom, for better or worse. And but there's an art and a science to it, and so we want to really work on getting people here at the beginning of the school year to give teachers time to actually collaborate together on like unit design and just the flow in the classroom between each teacher, because it's different. We all teach differently, and you have to have that kind of like balance in the classroom. It is an art, but if you do it well, you can have some significant gains.
Right, absolutely.
And then next one, we're getting there. So one of the newer things in this LCAP is long-term English learners is now added as a student group in this specific LCAP. So if they've been an English learner for six or more years, they're identified as an LTEL. And so if you have 30 or more of those in a school district, you have to identify those as a new student group. And so that's why we have that here. You want them to reclassify. So if they're 6 years or longer, there's something that's not working. And so we have to look at specific strategies, professional development on engaging those specific students in those classes. So that goal specifically is on professional development, tutoring services, and I'm going to talk about that a little later in one of our, I think, consent agendas or action items. And then resources for our EL students. They're one of our other groups who they drive our supplemental concentration dollars. So we have EL students, foster youth, students on free and reduced lunch. Those are the 3 students who drive those dollars. So we want to really make sure they're targeted for those students.
So what are our LTEL numbers? I mean, increase trends.
Gosh, I have that right over there.
So close.
I know, it's so
far
close.
away.
I can get back to you on that. I want to make sure I get you an accurate number.
It's
It's in the LCAP.
here.
It's actually in the LCAP.
So, in the 71-page document.
Yes, it is.
All right.
It's
I
in
did
the
that part.
metrics of goal 2.1. It says our number of LTELs currently and how many we want to decrease by.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Student success, site fund distribution, that is avid staffing for staff and continued professional development. We also use Title II to fund avid as well. This also talks about our library technician staffing. So we want to make sure we have staffing in our libraries, and that directly ties to literacy and helping our kids access curriculum and books, helping our kids read, which is a direct correlation to this goal. In addition, our elementary and middle school intervention teachers, specifically for math and ELA, we fund our intervention teachers from this goal at about 1.7 million. So that's a huge staffing number we have. The library technicians are almost 1 million. The top one there, comprehensive data monitoring, we want to have we're using a system now that's really in its infancy called EduClimber, and it pulls from Aries, and it gives us quicker access to data with our local data. So right now we do a lot of work with getting like pivot tables together from Aries, like taking it, putting it to Excel spreadsheets, and then doing pivot tables. This one makes it quicker and faster and easier. So we're actually excited about having that, and we're just now kind of trying it out.
Is it true that library technicians are some of the hardest hit with the layoffs?
That would be a Tina question.
The library technicians are still there. You're talking about the library clerks.
Okay,
They were,
all right, I'm sorry, I didn't understand the difference.
no, yeah, there's two. So the library technicians and library clerks, we still have library technicians.
Okay, but not very many clerks.
Yes, that would be the correct statement. Yes. Want to go back?
So with the student success metrics, what you were talking about, that data monitoring and pivoting, which is always EduClimber, right, is the new one. Is it replacing something, or it's just a bridge between?
It's a bridge between. It basically, what happens is all of the statewide data, our local data, it goes into the system, and it produces more quickly real-time data, especially for absenteeism. That's a really big one.
Right.
It does student reports by student based on their absenteeism, based on their attendance, based on their behavior. So it basically pulls all that data, it collates it together, it gives you like real-time access and data.
But not their grades, right? In grades.
It is really phenomenal.
And then you're also pulling data from iReady.
Yeah, so iReady, basically right now we have something called integration. So every evening or every morning, specific companies we work with, they access our student data to pull data. So for example, iReady is one of those systems that uses integration. I can think of a bunch of them. EduClimber would be another one. So basically, it pulls our student data. Our summer school right now, we use Edgenuity, and that actually works with our SIS. It's a back-end technology thing. But EduClimber gives you like student profiles that are like really timely, and it takes less time to actually like get the data. It streamlines our access to data.
And what is your action item with that data?
Well, it would be a lot of them. So when you have at your school sites, you have intervention teams, and you want to talk about students who are struggling, instead of having to pull like 7 pieces of data from different sources, you go to the student, you can have their whole profile right there, you can actually talk about the student right there, and what supports they need. So it like gives you more timely intervention data for students. So you can say, hey, this kid's getting a D and an F and a D and an F. Instead of having to go have 5 different reports ran, you can just click the student profile and it shows his absenteeism, his behavior, his attendance, his iReady, his state testing, his grades. I mean, it's just like that. So you can have those meetings and actually talk in real time about the students.
Thank you.
The last one is student and family engagement. So our parents were really great. They had a lot of feedback on engagement, and it was really valuable. So one of the things we continue to do in our school district is PBIS, positive behavior intervention supports. We have those at all of our schools with different levels of implementation. We do have 5 schools who have kind of an attendance and behavior support class. And we have it at USD High School, at River Valley High School, at River Bend, Gray Avenue, and AK. We are implementing an intervention program for our expelled youth. They're going to be attending USD Independence Academy. We went to Oregon and we looked at a program called Discovery, and we're currently trying to pilot that at Independence Academy. So this is for middle school kids who have been expelled, and they need a home, and more than that, they need skills, so they can go back to their school site the next year reintegrate and re-enter their school with not just increased academic skills, but actually like, you know, conflict resolution skills, social emotional skills, anger management skills. Just how am I supposed to be a student? That's kind of our hope with that program. School safety is a continued component of our LCAP. We continue to maintain our resource officers, probation officers, to work with our kids and to provide safety to our campuses. We did, once again, we had a lot of feedback about health aides this year, and so we do have health aides at each school site. We're really excited about supporting that, because that was a lot of feedback from our parents and our staff, actually, classified and certificated. Campus supervisors, minimum duty aides, and crossing guards are being supported through this LCAP. And like I mentioned, $150,000 is allocated towards security cameras, because there's a replacement cycle for security cameras at our school sites.
Sure.
They get old. It really is. That's like the new term, replacement cycle. We can bring that up. Parent engagement, parent liaisons, we have at all of our school sites. That was another big feedback from all of our parents, staff. That was, you know, keep our parent liaisons working with our communities. And they do a phenomenal job. I got to hear the parent liaison at Bridge Street help present for the Avid Demonstration School a couple weeks ago. Just phenomenal, the work they do with our community. More parent workshops, that was a really big one. And so they wanted more parent workshops on what does it mean, what does FAFSA mean? You know, how do I get my kid in college? Special education, we just did a special education workshop a month ago in response to that. We had, I think, 22 parents there who had students with special needs, and so that was really helpful. So that was something that was a lot of feedback on parent workshops. We're going to continue to do that next year. And then offer conferences and workshops for parents. We did send some parents to CABA, to the Bilingual Education Association conference this year. So that was actually cool having a bunch of parents go. And they're part of our DLAC, our District English Language Advisory Committee. So now we have like kind of a parent cohort who are supporting that effort, which is pretty awesome. Once you get parents to buy in and kind of get them committed, you find out that there's a lot more engagement with the community.
Yeah.
Is there a possibility, because I'm always, you know, I've sat through enough back to school nights and open houses where I sit in a room by myself because no parents show up. And that's high school.
Yeah.
And it's typical. But, you know, I mean, I don't think it would cost much to advertise like on KUBA, or I don't know how many people actually read the newspaper anymore, but, you know, putting it out there like early August, you know, school's starting back up, here's how you register for Parent Connect. School's starting back up, make sure your kids are ready, you know what I'm saying, just an ad campaign to target parents to be more engaged with their kids, you know?
We do
And I
on
have to
social
say-
media, they blast it. And I know there's a lot of people that follow their schools on their own social medias, and where we got a lot of them to start doing that was during COVID when we shut down.
Yeah.
Parents were,
Yeah.
I was so
And there's
pleased
a
with that.
certain group of parents, type of parent that is always involved, and then there's a certain type of parent that's the other
Never
extreme. So really targeting that other extreme. Because the ones that are always involved will always be involved no matter what we do. But the ones who don't feel like it's their place, a lot of times, they don't feel comfortable questioning what the school is doing because they think that the school's the expert. You know what I mean? But really, really targeting those parents that just don't seem to be involved, and it's not for any other reason. Well, there's a myriad of reasons, but really targeting them so they feel more comfortable being more involved.
Well, and you bring to mind, I'm so glad you brought that up, because it brings to mind what we did, and I say we, but it was really the work here, last summer going into August with that big park day at Gauche. Yeah, and that was really well done. You know, as far as like the excitement and get in the different booths there, places they could go to talk about, you know, social services and bring your garden and, you know, parole police mentors needed. I wonder if that's just another idea as far as having a booth there for, I'd like to help, or how can I be involved in my school, and capturing that information with a parent liaison there who's like, adopt a classroom or whatever. I don't know how it goes in that world, but as one of those highly involved parents, sometimes you want to, but the opportunity, and you just don't know what's needed.
Where to go or how to do it.
Yeah, and you're just too shy to ask, and but having something like that in that venue. But I do have to once again put a gold star on that day. That was a lot of fun and well executed.
I think, like you said, using our parent liaisons and knowing the community at that school to be part of that process would be awesome.
Right.
So yeah, we're really hoping with more parent liaisons we can kind of see some more engagement from our parents, and we can. Another thing I'd like to talk about is even when we give surveys out to our parent community, as many as we would send out, the level of response is so low, and so we want to continue to do that. So that can be an opportunity to get more feedback from our parents.
Yeah.
We're on to the next part. Student engagement, we have a long list here, but I'll kind of encapsulate it. Field trips, more field trips. So we support, science field trips, STEM field trips. We go to Shady Creek every year. That's funded through our LCAP. Athletics is strictly funded through LCAP. And as you know, attending athletic events, going to the track meet. We support a lot of athletic programs in our campuses. So we continue to support that. I can talk about athletics forever. Trainers, coaches, athletic directors, events, supplies, resources, uniforms. That is something that our kids need. And that directly helps them find a place on campus, which impacts them in the classroom being engaged. Supplemental supports the special education staff. We do fund some program specialists to work with our students with special needs. Performing arts, we do fund our elementary music teachers. That's just one funding mechanism. As you know, we also have the arts instruction grant, and then we have the new Prop 28 grant, not even a grant, it's a principal portion of funding. So performing arts there's no lack of funding for performing arts. We have substantial support for them in our district. And flexible learning environments, that is to continue, that's $630,000 to continue to support the high school implementation of media furniture. That's a whole different discussion, just because that's another big juncture that we haven't crossed yet, really. So this year we're finishing up our K-8, and then we have to look at our funding. We have to just kind of have a pretty robust discussion around that and what next steps are for that. Let's see. And we do have students each year identify as gifted and talented students. And we want to differentiate our instruction for kids who are also advanced. And so we provide funding through our LCAP for kids and teachers to get certified for GATE certification, and to attend professional development nights and parent nights throughout the year for GATE. That's something we continue to fund. Transportation, as you can tell, that's a big ticket item. We gotta get our kids to school. And with chronic absenteeism and kids not coming to class, we wanna make sure we give them every opportunity to get to the school. So we do fund a lot of the transportation needs through LCAP, field trips, which is awesome. With hiring more bus drivers, increasing the fleet, we do have more opportunities this past year for field trips since COVID. So a lot more kids this year were able to go field trips, and we hope to increase that next year with more field trips to college and career field trips to colleges, Avid, stuff like that. That was a lot. Oh gosh, equity. We keep going. Okay, equity multiplier. I thought we were two more. I swear there's two more. So this is totally new this year. We've never had to do this. So Albert Powell has an equity multiplier goal on increasing opportunities for college and career, graduation rate, and it's tough in those two schools because you don't have CT credentialed teachers. We don't have college classes. We don't have AP classes. So that indicator really is, AP involvement, dual enrollment involvement, state syllabi literacy, leadership classes, ROTC, work-based learning. A lot of that is at those schools. And so it's kind of, unfair, but they kind of get dinged sometimes. And I'm like, well, we don't have those opportunities yet. So we have to work with the school sites on identifying ways, investigating ways to get kids more involved in those aspects. And so some of the things that are listed here, I worked with Chris and I worked with Kevin on these 2 goals. He worked with the site councils. They worked with their staff in identifying some areas that they could probably grow. So Albert Powell is looking at investigating into more CTE programs. They do use Adminim, which is an online program. They want to look at some off-ramps with CTE to give those kids some opportunities. Alternatives to suspension, like I said, he was identified as having a high suspension rate, but the number of students he has at the school compared to how many kids are suspended is relatively low. But he does want to continue implementing PBIS. Professional development's listed on there, social emotional learning PD. There's Chris. I just had to put the picture up of Chris. Hey, Chris.
Is there,
Okay.
this is probably way out of the box and totally impossible, but we have a robust CTE program
Yes.
at both high schools. Is there any way to, like, I know in the college form, like to audit those classes or to, I understand transportation would be, but like if there was a way for Albert Powell High School students, say, yes, I would like to, that they go over to that school or YCIA, they go to that class on that day, like a college, I'm taking this college class, it's on this other campus, but it's credited to.
There's ways to do that. We actually did last year, we did have kids sign up we specifically targeted Albert Powell for fire science, and we signed up 3 kids to go to the community college to take fire science, it's a start. And so yes, there is a way to do that. YCA is a little more challenging because those kids typically don't want to be like in person. And so it's a little more challenging, but there are asynchronous options through the college. And so the asynchronous options through the college, and I think with Albert Powell, I think there are some opportunities.
Yeah, we reserve spots in our CT courses at both of the comprehensive high schools for Albert Powell students to access. Sometimes the schedules are challenging and sometimes we run into transportation issues.
Right.
And kind of similar to kind of what you just said with YCAA, they kind of have a similar theme. They want to provide more of that opportunity to their kids. A lot of them don't want to be in person, but we can look at asynchronous opportunities. They want to continue, they want to do some field trips. YCA take their juniors, their sophomores, juniors, and seniors, even freshmen, to like colleges to like let those kids get exposed to something different, even if it's going to Chico State. Like a lot of these kids haven't actually been outside of here. They don't know their opportunities. And so that's he does want to work with having a career and college technician at his school because he has this extra funding. And so we're talking about how that might look, having that at YCA. Can they share that with how possibly? 5 goals, a lot of new stuff. Thank you, that's a lot of time, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Tina.
Any other questions? Thanks.
I think you did a great job, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Now Scott with the good news.
Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing, and then move on to 8B, and then we'll open a different public hearing for the proposed budget.
Okay.
Alright, are you still the clerk or you good still?
I know that, I'm not your demographic.
Okay, this is how we pay for all. And then you see my presentation, so this is not gonna be shocking news. I tried to keep you informed of some of the challenges that we have and so this, we don't have to go over this too much, but we are now at the LCAP and budget and LCAP adoption, we're in June. In August, so one thing that we don't know yet is what our actual budget is going to be. We have a pretty good idea. We have the May revise, which is basically the governor's best estimate at this point of what the budget's going to be, but the budget's not passed yet, and this is a very, very challenging budget year. So there's a lot of demands, a lot of groups that are trying to vie for some of those dollars. Education was relatively untouched compared to other state programs, so that's good news. But again, I'm trying to make that difference right now. So we'll see what happens in June. So once we get that, the budget is passed, if there are any major changes, we'll come back in August and let you know what that looks like on the revenue side. So on the revenues in our budget, some of the big factors, again, not news here. We have a cost of living adjustment, and this is for our per student funding for the local control funding formula, increase of 1.07%. However, we have our funding average daily attendance is declining by 310 year over year. So that's a challenge for us. That means our local control funding formula is $157 million. It's a decline of $4.9 million. That's a big challenge for us.
I'm sorry. But the amount of students we have is 11,685. So on the absentee day, so it's 10% absenteeism. Okay, thank you, that's all. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah, and so that's also kind of continuing on from the conversation that I did on the May revise. We used to have a average daily attendance rate of more like 95 to 96%, 95 to 95.5%. We're running more at 91.5 to 92% right now, so that's a big part of our challenge right now.
Okay.
And our attendance projection for next year is lower than what you're, I think it's 11,002.
11,461.
That's our enrollment versus our ADA.
Well, actually, I think that's our enrollment this year. 11,235.
Oh, I see. Okay, yes.
Well, that's projection, but actual.
It's projections. This is a projection.
Right.
I hope it's 11,461, but let's skip right ahead to the next slide. I'm gonna go back because I got a couple more thoughts here.
I rabbit trailed you.
That's okay. All good. Tino went over, so part of the LCFF is what Tino hit a lot on is the LCAP, because we have to report out on the supplemental concentration portion of that. That's at $34 million, or almost $35 million. We do have some one-time carryover funds from Title I, and ESSER 3 is the last of the COVID funds. They are going away here in September, but we still, we have some budget in our 24-25 budget for that. Special education also is getting COLA, so 1.07, and we have an unfunded contribution. So this is what comes out of our unrestricted general fund to, provide the additional services to special ed that is not funded through state and federal resources right now. That's close to $24 million. So we are at this point where we've been talking about for a number of years. We're kind of at this revenue cliff where we have a little perfect storm going on. We have the ADA, average daily attendance, hold harmless, that was holding up our revenues for a number of years, has fallen off. We are in declining enrollment, and we also, of that enrollment, we have less of them come to school every day. So it's hitting our bottom line to the point of about $5 million reduction. So this is the slide we just talked about. So our projection for enrollment is 11,235 for next year. And that's just kind of the trend. We've seen a downward trend over the years.
Scott, I think Jasmine has a question.
Yes, sorry.
It's okay, Scott. I have a question about the last slide. So, point of clarification, and then maybe a multi-part question. So the decline in ADA is 310, and then that equates to $4.9 million over the course of the year.
That's correct.
That's correct? So my question is, what are we doing to increase ADA?
Well, that's a good question, and it's probably a broader question for cabinet that we're gonna have to work on. I will tell you, our rate is almost identical to other school districts in the state of California. Doesn't mean that we can't get better, but this is not a Yuba City problem. This is a state of California problem.
Well, the reason why
the United States problem.
No, I understand, but the reason why I bring this up is because I think we've talked about this, at least had this concern in previous board meetings too, when you've talked about this, is how do we make, or like what can we incentivize it to schools and to students to like prizes, raffles, whatever it may be that's highly preferred for those individual schools or those individual students. Because to me, if we can raise it even half of that, like instead of 310, do like 155 or whatever it ends up being, and that's $2 million to buy, let's just say, Game Boys or whatever, like Xboxes is pennies in comparison to the revenue that we could potentially recoup. Do I feel like that's gonna be a fix for what our issue is? No, but I mean.
Get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
So that is one of the conversations I'm having with principals during their evaluation that have a chronic absentee indicator on their dashboard. Is the conversation about what is the why are kids not coming to school? Because I think that's one of the things, we think that it's one thing or another, and so really digging into and looking at the data and having conversations with the students and families, and that's what our parents liaisons will be helping with is, why aren't you coming to school? And for some kids, it's clothing or shoes or things like that, and then some are working because they're helping with the families to put food on the table. So it's analyzing who's not coming to school, but it is, and then also is there ways to help incentivize to come to school. To come to school.
Something that was good this year was Melissa over at Birch Street. We had a conversation. She's like, I want to help with my absenteeism. And so we identified all of our kids who were on, I guess you would say, on track to meet that 10% threshold. And we basically did a query in Aries, and we got all the students. There was like 38 of them, 39 of them. And so she took those students and she worked with their parent liaison and contacting all those families and said, hey, so that was something that was very strategic that she did, and she targeted those specific students based on our demo. That's something I want to talk about the EduPlanner. It's like it gets those students that fast.
Right.
So we can get on that more quicker.
I just wondered if you can run any type of data on kids who are involved in a sport or a club. How are their attendance compared to those who are not doing
So
something?
it's interesting because I did look at some of those trends, and you will see during their sport, attendance is amazing.
Right.
And because they know you
Yeah,
can't,
you can't
have,
be-
right.
But also for clubs,
Yeah.
who's involved in a
And we
school
could
club,
build-
how is their attendance? Because I think once you get more kids engaged in school, then they're
Absolutely.
gonna show up more. I just was curious to what the numbers are as far as who's engaged in school in an activity and who's
Our
not.
athletes during their seasons are
Right.
definitely more.
Well, and that's not a Scott question.
No, I know, but I'm just saying,
Like, see, understand,
I
we're,
get it.
we're pitching
But
it.
I totally get it. I mean, it makes sense, and you're right. I think engagement, marketing, information. So the little things like taking your kid to the dentist in the afternoon instead of the morning. When we're taking attendance. I mean, there's. I think that could be the strategies, marketing on what this means. The dollar amount. Every time a kid comes to school, what does that mean for your school, and how does that those dollars support the programs that we do at the schools, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I agree. I think there's more we can do, but I was just pointing out that it's not a really Yuba City problem. This is a statewide problem.
I don't even think it's just statewide. I think
No, it's
nationwide.
I'm sorry, you're right.
I
It's
think it's-
more universal than just
Yeah.
Yuba City.
Kids and parents figured out they could do things remotely,
Yeah.
so the impetus isn't to get to school anymore, so.
Yeah.
Or get to work. I mean, a lot of parents work remotely now,
It's a
so.
long recovery process.
Right.
Sorry, Scott, but you got the gist of what I asked.
Absolutely.
Perfect, thank you.
Yes.
We can move on.
Okay. This is a repeat slide from the May revision, and I'm just highlighting a couple things on this. Prop 98 is really the legislation that has a guaranteed minimum of the state budget for schools. It's roughly 40%. And the original proposal from the governor was to kind of monkey with that a little bit. So our 23-24 revenues for schools were given to us without the state really knowing what their budget was, and now they were kind of coming back and saying, well, your number wasn't really that, it was lower, and we're gonna kind of take that money back over the next couple of years. Well, us and a lot of advocates have said no, that, cry and foul on that. And I think we're really getting to a place where there's some sort of negotiated settlement there. Haven't seen the details on that quite yet, so we'll see kind of what that turns into. June 30th. The revenue side. So this is just a big picture look at our revenues, roughly $214 million. Most of that, 73%, is our local control funding formula. Within that, embedded is the $35 million for the supplemental concentration or LCAP dollars. We have smaller slices of federal and state revenue and some other local revenue as well. On the expense side of things, kind of what's some of the big drivers here? So we if you just look year over year, we do have staff reductions of about 30 FTE. Just to give you some perspective, we have over 1,400 FTE in the district. And the staff reductions is a combination of classified and certificated. Some were COVID funded positions, some were just reductions due to our lower enrollment. Other pressures on the budget, CalSTRS, so the employer portion of CalSTRS has remained constant 19.1%, still a large number, but it's at least not increasing. CalPERS is still continuing to increase to 27.05 next year, and it's going up to about 28% actually in 2 years out. Inflation's moderating or stabilizing at about 3%. At least that's what we're projecting right now. That's what it is currently. And just on the expense side, we also have, I said we had some one-time carryover from Title I and ESSER 3. We also have some expenses associated with that as well in the 24-25 budget. So big picture, the expense side of things. The kind of, you'll notice the certificated classified salaries and benefits really make up about 74% of our overall budget. That's all budget sources. And to operate the rest of the budget is less than roughly 25%. So that's a combination of supply services, small amount in capital outlay. Now this is when you just put numbers to all those, that information, and this is kind of what it looks like. So this is the 24-25 projected budget. I have it broken out into unrestricted, restricted, and combined. That's really how we look at these things. The most important part of this is, in my opinion, the column is the unrestricted. These are the dollars that you can use on anything. The restricted column, there's lots of different resources, lots of, special ed, there's ELOP, there's a lot of different programs, but you could only use those dollars in very specific ways. So the health of your district is that unrestricted column. I highlighted a particular number because that's our challenge right now. We have, if you look at the change in ending fund balance, brackets are bad, that's a negative number. We have our budget going down by $5.2 million projected in 24-25. Now, if you look, I also changed the format a little bit on this. I put the beginning fund balance and the ending fund balance. So you can see we're starting off, and these are all still projections because we haven't even closed our books yet. But we're projecting to start the year off with $25 million in there. Reduce it by that $5.2 million. Now we drop under $20 million in the unrestricted. You can see, interesting, you go down the restricted side, we have a pretty large beginning and ending fund balance. We're going to dig into that in the next slide or two. But again, I'm highlighting this because the unrestricted is really the health of the district, and that $5 million is something that we need to address over the next year. Well, several years, but.
Are there more things that could be paid for? I mean, are we paying for everything we possibly can with restricted funds?
It's a very good question, and it's a very good budgeting strategy. That is exactly what we should be doing. We did put a lot of effort into that this year to get as much over into restricted or LCAP or whatever we can. I think there's probably a little bit more work we can do as we roll up our sleeves going forward, but when you're developing your budget, you want to use your restricted first. Anything that you can pay for out of your restricted dollars first. There's some challenges with that. A lot of the federal funding sources you can't supplant. So if you were paying for that out of unrestricted last year, they don't want you to, you can't just start paying for it out of restricted. So that's a challenge. But I think there's some room to work there. But I think we did a pretty good job of vetting that with the new team here for this budget.
Okay, thank you.
So this is our ending fund balance. I kind of highlighted the restricted part because I noted it in the prior slide. So when we look at our total ending fund balance, drop to the bottom line, we have about $69 million there. Now come back up to the top line, the number I circled, $49 million is restricted. And the other three lines in there is that $19 million, that's the unrestricted portion. I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into the restricted. So again, bottom line is that $49 million. Above it is kind of what we're projecting, this categories to be on. The Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant is a grant that we have that you can spend dollars out through 27, 28, so we have a little room to, work with that. And it is all about learning recovery, so there's a lot of educational things that you can do with it. It is restricted. The Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant, so this is really our after-school type programs. I will tell you, that's a pretty large ending fund balance in there. Many districts up and down the state are having a challenge spending those dollars right now. So I know that's something that Tino and Ed Services is working on, is how to best spend those dollars. But that is the biggest portion of that ending fund balance right now. And then the arts music block grant, Tino kind of mentioned that we have some carryover in that as well, that we have more than one, several years to spend it in. But a lot of our ending fund balance is wrapped up in restricted. So when we start looking at our multi-year projections, these are some of the major assumptions. There's a lot of other assumptions in there as well, but these are some of the major ones. Again, the funded average daily attendance. And I say funded because it's not actually just our current year. There's the better of 3 different categories, either current year, prior year, or the average of the prior 3 years. We tend to be funded more on the average of the prior 3 years. Since we're declining enrollment, that does actually protect us to a certain degree, but we do get the higher of those. We also expect COLA to normalize in the out years a little bit, closer to that 3% range. I have our unduplicated count going down a little bit. Our last year was not great on getting reporting back on our unduplicated count, mostly on the low-income families on reporting, since they don't really need to do that reporting for being eligible for the lunch program. We tend to get less of those, that information filled out. We hope to reverse this trend or change it a little bit, but it is a rolling 3 average, so that actually helps you on the down swing, but it doesn't. If you make a dramatic increase in 1 year, it doesn't help you on that. It takes a little while to catch up. And the rest we kind of talked about, CalSTRS, CalPERS, and inflation. So this is a little bit different than I presented in the past. You see kind of up top, I said this is unrestricted. So this is 3 years worth of the unrestricted category, because I really wanted to make sure you see this separately. I've already gone through the 24-25 column, but you can kind of see the out 2 years. I think a couple things to note is you do see our revenue sources going up slightly as, again, just projections here, but if we do get a 3% increase on LCFF, that does a little bit more than offset the decline in ADA that we're seeing in the out years. I'd say the other notable thing here is to kind of look at that change in ending fund balance, so the third row up from the bottom. We still look like we're deficit spending, projected to deficit spend. We have not factored in anything for negotiations with the bargaining unit. So this is before bargaining, this is where we're at right now. So we do have some work to do to reduce our expenses. And then the ending fund balance is always important. Don't want to run out of money. So you can, in these projections, you see it beginning balance starting at 25 million, and after 3 years, going down to 11 million. These are only projections based on the information that we have right now. Same format, restricted only. And so I think the only couple things to note here is your revenues. If top line, we go from 52 million down to 38. This has a lot to do with that carryover revenue dollars. So now the 38 is more of a normalized year-to-year number. And the change in ending fund balance is still increasing. Really, that's a result of still the same things I've talked about in the past, ELOP. Until we start spending more of those dollars, they'll drop to the bottom line. So that's one of the major contributors there. These are our other funds. So we have other funds for child development, child nutrition, deferred maintenance, developer fees, and little RUs. I mostly just highlighted the change in fund balance expected in those, and the ending fund balance, developer fees and Melrose, and deferred maintenance. We talked a lot about facilities this year. We have an extraordinary amount of facility needs. These are some of the resources that can help satisfy mostly, to be honest with you, not our maintenance needs, but our capacity related needs. So increasing capacity or replacing portables is also a visible expense for those. And so that's it. Some of the challenges going forward. This is a little bit more of a, I would say, a year that I'm not quite as sure that the budget that we're going to get from the governor is what was reported in May. There's just a lot of demands on those dollars, so it's a little bit of a wait and see. We haven't negotiated with our bargaining unit, so that is something that we have to be mindful of as we go through, as we look at our budget. You know, the declining enrollment in ADA and facilities needs. So I just kind of highlighted the, big thing is we got $5 million that we're deficit spending right now that we need to make some progress towards closing the gap between revenues and expenses. Any other questions? I know, that was doom and gloom for.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah.
I'm going to close the public hearing. Okay, C, request to rename Honker Stadium. We do have one, request to speak from the public.
You want me to read this?
Oh, yes, Shelby's gonna read that.
Item on or on the agenda? Items posted on the agenda, notice to the public. Under the Brown Act, the board shall entertain comments on any item appearing on the posted agenda. As the board discusses agenda items, audience participation is permitted. Generally, the president will ask board members for their remarks before recognizing requests to speak from the audience. At the president's discretion, agenda items may be considered in other than numerical order. The board will respect the rights of the public to express their viewpoints on matters within the board's jurisdiction. However, comments that are defamatory or that violate the privacy rights of any students or individuals may not be protected by law. The board shall not permit any disturbance or willful interruption of board meetings.
Okay. First, perfect. Mr. Calkins?
Oh, got a little tight there, guys. Thank you for having me. This proposal is very important to me and the community and the people that I know. 2, Yuba City Unified School District Governing Board. Through Cy Olson, Yuba City High School Principal. From Philip Calkins, class of 1981. Proposal to name the Yuba City High School football field field in honor of Coach George H. Calkins. Objective. This proposal aims to honor Coach George H. Calkins by naming the football field at Honker Stadium as Calkins Field at Honker Stadium. This honor acknowledges Coach Calkins' significant contribution to Yuba City High School and the border communities. Objective. This proposal aims to honor, I'm sorry, I already read that. That's how good I am with this. Proposed changes. Sign installation. I have some copies of that. I've had it mocked up to what the sign looks like right now that we could do with your approval and your input on it. That would be great. Sign installation, install a sign over the scoreboard bearing the name Calkins Field at Honker Stadium. This change would involve no modifications or impact on the field and would be complied in consultation with school administration. And there's a copy of the plaque that we've gone over with my family, that I've gone over with my family, and that would be a really a great thing to do too. Plaque installation, install commemorative plaque that highlights Coach Calkins' contribution to the Yuba City High School athletic program. Placement and wording of the plaque would be determined in consultation with administration. I hope you have the proposal. There's background on my dad in that, in the proposal, and I know I don't have much time, so I'm trying to make this quicker than it could be. Coaching success. Under the leadership, the Honker football team won 14 championships. He also led 1 baseball and 6 softball teams to championships. More combined championships than any other coach at Yuba City High School in 100 plus years. Impact. Attached to the proposal, please find letters of support from Yuba City High School alum describing the impact Coach Calkins has had on their lives and the wider community. Funding. The proposal charges include the construction and installation of the sign and plaque will be funded by community resources. No school funding is required for this project. On the proposal is my name and phone number and text. If any questions are needed to be answered, I'd be glad to do that. We believe that honoring Coach Calkins with this recognition is a fitting tribute to his legacy and an inspiration for future generations of Yuba City High School. Thank you for your considering this proposal. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer. I appreciate the time, and hopefully we can get something done. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So what I've included is the letters of support that came to my office. I've also included on page 368 or 610 the actual board policy related to the naming of facilities in honor of either those individuals living or deceased. Scott and I both took a look at this and felt that it met the criteria to bring forward for the board to give direction regarding what you would like to do next.
So
you're asking for direction this evening?
But not action.
There's no action.
So
So whether or not you would like to see this come back as an action item in the future.
what's the pleasure of the board? Guess I can go one at a time unless you guys have questions.
I prefer to keep it as Yuba City Stadium, Yuba City High
Honker
School
Stadium.
Stadium, Honker Stadium.
Member Ceciola,
I don't need action at this time.
Okay.
Mr. Colton,
I don't need action at this point either.
Lynn,
I have to abstain.
and I concur with the other 3 members that we don't need action.
Thank you.
All right, comments from the public, or from the public on items not on the agenda? No. Thank you very much. Can I get a motion on the consent agenda with the exception of 10M?
I move that we approve. Second.
Okay, on a motion by member Pretty and a second by member Ciola, all those in favor? Any opposed? Member Core and member Orozco are absent.
Thank you.
Motion carries. And 10M.
All right, my questions. Thank you for the inclusion of all of the related materials for inspection. I did inspect that. And my question is not on springboard English, which looks great, but rather Discovery, the Discovery SEL. And my My concern with this is with regard, I think I understand what we're doing here and why. My concern is that it's a 50-minute class and 30 minutes are check-in. 15 minutes are the actual activity, and that is put forth in the curriculum. So where is the lesson in this? So it's, and the other question is, how is this different than what the counseling courses that are currently being offered on a regular basis?
Well, first, they don't have a counseling course that's offered every day during the school day. There's no counselor teaching a course. Counselors do, right now, they do push-ins to the classes, so they'll do like elementary, middle school, and high school, they push into classes, but they don't do that every day. So there's no consistent delivery of instruction. So with this piece, there's a training in the end of June in Colorado. And the teacher who's gonna be teaching this will go to the training and it'll get more fleshed out. So I don't imagine after she goes to the training that she's gonna take 30 minutes to check in.
So I think,
50
Tina, for
minute.
clarification,
Yeah.
there's, the program will be implemented at 2 locations, Gray Avenue and,
Yeah, so this is the Gray
Oh, but
Avenue.
this is only
elective
Gray
course.
Avenue.
This is just the Gray Avenue. This is just the elective course. So I imagine once the teacher goes through that training, she's gonna flesh that curriculum out more, and it'll be. I don't imagine she's gonna be doing 30 minutes of checking in a 50-minute period. It'll probably be I'm guessing 10 to 15 minutes of grounding, and then she'll kind of modify it as we go. It's kind of like we do with classes now, like when teachers do their instruction, they kind of adjust instruction as they see meet their students and adjust their instruction or curriculum.
Okay, but so then, if it's written in the curriculum, even though it's written in there, because it's written in there that they will take, and it doesn't even say approximately, it says 30 minutes. So, even though it's written in there, it's teacher discretion, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
and I don't imagine no teacher would do 30 minutes. We should have adjusted that to, based on the teachers, based on this classroom, the dynamics of the class and the student needs, because these are going to be very specific students in these classes.
But also it depends on your definition of check-in.
Yeah.
Because it might be, Tino, how are you today? What's going on in your
Great.
world? And then Kirsten, that
Well,
might
no, they
be-
list what to do on, it's page 2, they say it takes 30 minutes, but then another student asked to share 4 responses. Name, number, well-being 1 to 10, how they are feeling, students must identify an emotion, and 4, respond to the prompt of the day. For example, what was something positive you did in the last 24 hours? Daily topics vary, so the topics vary, right, like you said, and are progressive in developing appropriate disclosure, but every single day, those 4, each student does that.
and Tina, the curriculum that was presented was on the full day program, not the modification we'll be implementing at Gray, which will be a 1 period right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
So
but
there-
is this modification that, or is this the full day, or?
that's the full day
This is
program we're
full
reading.
day program.
Well, then we're signing off on the full day program, how are,
Well, so that's the curriculum and it'll be modified based upon the teacher who's going back for the training to align with a period a day. And that is the model that in Oregon that you saw, correct?
Yeah, the important component of this is a totally new program that we've never done before. You're incorporating social emotional learning into a class for kids who typically are challenged with navigating middle school. And so I imagine there's going to be some flexing in the beginning as the teacher's new to this curriculum and tries to find out what kind of works for him or her in the classroom. So I did see this in the first middle school we went to in Colorado, and I think that class had like 12 students, so it was a little quicker. It didn't take 30 minutes because they had 12 students, and she started off with those questions. They did like a little community circle. I think that was about 8 minutes. We added to the community circle, so it took a little longer. We had 4 of us, joining the group. It was actually kind of fun. Then they went back to their seats. Then they incorporated like part of this check-in, the grounding. They incorporated the EOA component because they did like a quick write, kind of like what you talked about. They kind of responded to it. They had like, I think 5 minutes to like a paragraph. Then they did like a pair share with their partner. Like one was A, one was B, and they kind of shared. Then they finished that. That was probably about 15 to 17 minutes. And then they went to some other activities in the class. I think that class they were doing, an article on like the 4 C's of collaboration. Then they kind of did like a reading on that, they shared it out at the end. So this is a brand new course. I don't think it's gonna be exactly 30 minutes per class period based on the students.
And then who is, and then you mentioned it's an elective,
Yeah.
right? But is there a compulsory attendance for those who seem to need it, or
I would say
How do you get your-
there's a strong encouragement.
what are the, if the strong encouragement with those who are identified as most in need of this education, if they refuse, what is the?
Well, they'll go to a different, so like, just like with course selection, they have like in our high schools, they have like, this is your first selection, this is your second, third. With this specific course, since it's new, there will be a counselor connection with the student, so they'll call the students in, they'll talk to them, say, hey, we have this new course, we know you've been struggling in your classes last year. This is something that can kind of help you with study skills, with managing your kind of emotions. Is this something that you'll be interested in doing? Because I think it's gonna help you navigate the rest of your school. And hopefully with that relationship with that counselor, and their encouragement, they'll sign up. Some might not, so if they don't sign up, they go to their second choice or their third choice in elective. So it could be choir, it could be, I don't know, whether a CTE, so they'll go to their other elective classes.
Okay.
Some kids will probably just get placed in that class based on their honors, electives, or whatever, based on how the
How the day
master
works
schedule works out. It kind of reminds me of zones of regulation to a certain extent. And to be honest with you, like when you get so specific into like you're gonna spend X amount of time in this particular avenue or whatever, it just depends on how open the kids wanna be in that particular moment. Zones of regulation, when you're identifying like which zone the student's in, it could totally be a quick check-in, if you will, or it can like go into something that's way more.
Fix the whole class period.
Yeah, and so I think it's just an adjustment piece. Me personally, I mean, you have, like even in math, you have lesson plans that pull or that ask you to spend, or this particular part of the lesson is gonna take you a day. This one's gonna take you 2 days to go over.
Right, it's different. Right, it's just when I look at new curriculum and having been told that, what if it's in there, we approve it, it's like the whole thing and that's it. That's when I'm looking at it and it's a 50-minute class period and I'm like, what is the value of a class where the majority of it is how you doing today? As opposed to a counseling check-in that was my only question about that. But having heard that it's flexible and that it's different, then that depending, because of it's not a whole day.
I mean, I guess like if it was a math class, then I'd be more concerned than it being a social emotional class. But the check-in being longer, we're taking it more.
Well, and the only reason we're even looking at the social emotional is that it does connect, like because our board priority is that math and literacy and and so I'm assuming like this is why otherwise, otherwise emotional and mental health needs to be, if it's not directly correlating to like you mentioned, Tino, better study skills, et cetera.
And a lot of our kids who are leaving middle school, who do go to high school, we did start Summer Bridge last year at Yuba City, so we had a cohort of kids go through Summer Bridge who were kind of at risk. We're also helping, we talk about these kids who have those like challenges getting into high school. This is hopefully another option to kind of get those kids earlier, to like give them some skill sets before they become freshmen and we see them, on our radar being suspended. Or, chronically absent.
Yeah, and we've definitely seen a middle school troubling trend in that sense, so. Okay, that was my question. Thank you, President Dami.
Awesome, can we get a motion?
I make a motion to approve M as written.
I'll second.
Okay, on a motion by member Ciola, second by member Pretty, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
Should I get 50 minutes?
No, oh my gosh, my eyes will bleed.
And then action A, expulsion, suspended contracts, and readmittance cases. Can I get a?
I make a motion to approve as discussed in closed session.
Okay, on a motion by member Ciola, second by member Quilty, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Okay, and then, the second, reading of the proposed revisions to the YCUSD board policies.
Thank you. I bring forward for second reading, the proposed, board policies. The only, one that I do think you are, I'll spread out here, would need, further direction is on BP 3112 regarding the option one or two, regarding the appeal process, whether or not you would prefer that it go to the board or that it go to this Department of Education.
I think we've talked about that before in previous board meetings, right?
Well, I don't know that there was an
Consensus,
actual option, right, so all the policies are being brought forward for second read and approval. The only clarification will be which option you would prefer.
Can you give us a page number on the actual DP?
Yeah.
Because I just went there, but it was William,
Yeah,
Uniform
and that's my
complaint.
apology, it is,
um,
there's two different options. Oh, apologies. It is AR 1312.3.
I think it's on page 4 of in the agenda, in the,
in the
sorry, 1312.4?
It's on page 429.
No, I'm on the,
Oh.
I'm on the diligence, so the page number on
they
the
don't
bottom right.
match.
Oh, I'm not on the, I want the actual,
You want the actual, it's AR. AR 1312.3.
or is William?
Oh, okay. Well, I have it on page 427.
Statement, military, website, filing complaints, mediation, investigation, timeline for investigation. Okay, here we are, page 19. All right, thank you.
So the preference would be is for the board to hear the appeal or for the Department of Education.
My vote is for the board.
my vote is for the Board of Education.
Can you clarify, member states the Board of Education or the school board?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, because they both have, yeah, good catch. Yeah, that would say the school board elected by our constituents to represent them. I would like for us to be the ones
So
that,
clarification, are you making a motion to adopt the policies with
Option
option
one.
one?
Okay, can I get a second? We can take a vote after.
I'll second that, Danny.
Okay, so on a motion by member COCL and a second by member Quilty to approve with option one that it comes to Beep City Unified School Board. Can I get, I guess, a roll call?
Member Ciosiola is in yes.
Member Quilty?
Yes.
Yes.
Member Pretty?
Oh.
No.
Members Lamb?
Yes.
Member Downey? Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries with option one.
With the rest of the policies, correct? So that was the motion, right? That all policies with that option.
Option 1 is what, they just voted.
Right, but I was asking about the full policy.
I think they were just talking about
Oh, the
this
option.
one,
Okay, thank
just
you.
AR 13
Thank
point,
you.
13,
Sorry.
12.3.
Because that's the one with the option, right? And
Correct,
then
yeah.
so then when we make a motion to approve them all, it would be with that option one.
So what about the rest of it, I guess? Because we've already
Thank you.
voted on AR 13, 12.3. So the rest of the board policies that are up for second reading.
I move that we approve as written in our packet.
Give me a second. I'll second. On a motion by member Pretty, a second by member Downey. A roll call, I guess. Member Sciola.
No.
Member Quilty. This is the rest of the board policy.
Yeah. Yes.
Member Pretty,
Yes.
Member Lamb,
Yes.
Member Domi, yes. There's two board members that are absent, Member Roscoe and Member Core.
Okay.
So motion carries. So the rest of them are all great. Ish. Okay. All right. We are on C. Houghton Mifflin Harcourt Go Math digital licenses.
Yeah, we bring forward, this is our K-5 math curriculum. We're just doing a renewal contract for 2 years for our student licenses, from lottery funding for, the math, Go Math.
Perfect. I have one question.
Yeah.
I know that the new the new,
Frameworks,
there we
math
go.
frameworks.
Were last year, so do we anticipate maybe like 2-3 years out before we
2
start
years,
seeing
I would say 2
curriculum?
years out. Yeah, they're still working on publishing companies to getting, basically they have to submit to the CDE, their proposals, and that won't be till probably within a year. And then we will go through and then we'll, as a district, choose ones to pilot, get a committee together, a math committee, and then pilot different curriculums for the new adoption.
Cool. Any other questions? Can I get a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
A motion by member Cianciola, second by member Pretty, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Swan Math Services.
I have a
Continuing with-
question.
Oh, go ahead.
My question is just, I remember going back several years when I was still teaching, Swan was really kind of a hot button topic for some of the teachers. And it was used as supplemental. Is it still being used as supplemental?
Yeah, it's still some curriculum, and I imagine with the adoption, the new frameworks, they'll be one of the probably publishers that will probably look at it.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So this is continuing, we do use Swan for math coaching. We have had feedback from our staff that they would like to have a more streamlined focus on more instructional practices in the classroom. So we met with the meet and consult, and then we met with our principals, and we met with Swan Math. And we've decreased a little of the time out of the classroom for the teachers. That was one of their requests, that there was a lot of pull-out time. So we renewed the contract with a little less pull-out time, but we're still gonna provide math coaching through Swan Math. And that aligns with our board goals of increasing our math achievement.
Can you just clarify to me why we wouldn't be, maybe it's not available, but like Go Math is something that this district has used for many, many years. If Swan Math is something that's supplemental, why are we using their services for lack of better word, professional development as opposed to Go Math, I'm not sure.
Because of the coaching. Swan Math has specific teacher coaches that have had teaching experience with teaching math. And they come to our schools to work with their tutors and actually the coaching piece of it. A lot of the publishers have the curriculum piece of it, but it's really hard to find the coaching piece of it. And so they actually provide a pretty robust coaching model that aligns with our essential standards.
So are they coaching two-part? I'm pretty sure I already know the answer, but are they coaching just based on like good math?
First instruction.
Yeah. Or are they teaching to Swan or like assisting coaching on Swan?
So it's both. They have supplemental
Swan supplemental.
Swan curriculum. And then they also are meeting with them this year. We wanted to kind of wean away from that a little and then focus more on the instructional component. So
Like best practice.
the best practices. So that's when we met with the company and met with the principals, actually just 2 weeks ago. And each site kind of outlined kind of what model they want. And some of them wanted more focus on essential standards in coaching, and some of them wanted more of a focus just on the first instruction practices. And I think it's a good practice. If you could do, like they do demo lessons with the teachers, where they can see like different engagement practices with the students. And we've gotten good feedback on it, but we have listened to the teachers and the staff on decreasing the pull-out time for the teachers.
I'm glad that there's been adjustment.
Yeah.
I don't have any other questions.
Do parents attend the workshops?
They actually do have parent workshops.
Well, I know they do.
We didn't do one
Do
this
they
year,
attend?
but we are gonna do some next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I saw it in the contract, there's supposed to be.
Parent workshops, yeah. We actually just talked about that actually, just 2 weeks ago.
Can I get a motion?
I'm making a motion to approve.
Second.
On a motion by member Cecile, second by member Lynn, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. E, full line contract.
On fire today, just keep going. So we have an option, Scott actually mentioned it, we do have a lot of restricted funds that we're trying to allocate for our students. And we try to throw as much as possible at our tier 2 services. So tier 1 services are for all kids. So all kids get best first instruction, all kids get counseling push-in, all kids get counseling support, all kids get PBIS. That's for all kids. All kids get the options for athletics, for performing arts. That's every student. When you get to tier 2, that's when we start looking at kids who are struggling in their classes. So like we look at math, science, social science, ELA, we start pinpointing and targeting these kids. So a lot of our teachers, not all of them, they do stay after school, some of them, and get paid to do small group tutoring. So we do have the in-person option for our students. That's at the K-8s. At the high schools, we have more of the credit recovery model, where they do edgenuity services, edgenuity instruction, and they have a teacher facilitator. We do have some teachers who stay before school and stay after school to work with kids in high school, but there's not like a guaranteed access for every kid, right, to have that option. So an additional option is virtual tutoring. It's not the panacea for all education. It's just it's an additional strategy for those tier 2 kids. And so I kind of looked into this. I was like, okay, what kids are really using this last year? We piloted it this year. And I just had I was just looking at some students. We had 85 students this year who accessed it. They're mostly elementary. An area of growth for next year will be reaching more into our high schools. And I think this year it didn't reach more into our high schools because of just communication and advertising. So I think next year we have to do some more targeted advertising to families and to students. Our top schools using it this year was Andros Carperos, April Lane, and the very top one was Bridge Street. The top subjects that were used this year were ELA tutoring, elementary English ELA, elementary science, elementary math. And then two of the student cases I looked at, there was one student he's a third grader at Butte Vista, he's special education. During his IEP and during some of his parent meetings, he did 55 hours of tutoring with full mind. And I even looked up his grades at the end of the year based on his report card, mostly 2s and 3s proficient, like advanced or not advanced, near proficient or proficient. So I was like, okay, this kid's getting some benefit of it. Another kid at King Avenue in special education did 50 hours of ELA tutoring. And so I think if we increase the advertising of this option for kids, it'll be really good this year. And so we developed a plan, because that's a lot of hours when you look at that quote, it's $900-something thousand. So it's a big chunk of money. We do have ESSER 3 funds. Our ESSER 3 funds, we have about $3 million, almost $4 million in ESSER 3 funds, and we have to use those by September 30th. Those are from our COVID funding. Those are the restricted funds that Scott's talking about. If we don't use that money by September 30th, it goes back. And so I'm like, and that 20% is very, very specific to tutoring and intervention. So you can't use it on furniture, you can't use it on technology, it's very targeted and restricted. And so our plan is at King Avenue, Bridge Park, April Lane, Lincoln, and Lakecrest, based on their enrollment, that we have 800 hours at each school, and that's 40 students. So that could basically be 40 of the same student all year, or you can do 20 and 20, one fall, one spring. 20 fall, 20 spring. For our middle school, for Gray, Berry, Terra Buena, Riverbend, and Via Vista, they have higher enrollment. They would get 1,200 hours at each school. That would be 60 kids. And those would be tier 2 targeted kids.
And this is in-person tutoring.
No, this is
in full price.
this is
because that's
virtual.
virtual.
This is all virtual. Yeah. So.
But then it's voluntary, right? Sorry to interrupt your spiel, but if it's virtual, it's voluntary.
Well, yeah. What you would do though, you do the same thing. Like, hey, I noticed you're struggling in math. Working with a parent, like we want to get this kid an additional tutoring option.
At home.
At home, or you could do it at school on a Chromebook, and then they would have the option to do it with full mind. So it's strictly virtual. It's not in person.
Is there a possibility that, because I know a lot of, I'm not so sure about middle school, but I know in elementary school there's an after-school program.
Yeah.
Would there be a possibility of having a classroom in the after-school program dedicated to this tutoring for those kids to have a place to go?
Yeah.
where it's, you know, they can focus, it's quiet, you know, it's a good study place.
And it would have to be manned.
Well, it would, but we're already manning after school programs, so I don't.
So we actually did, it's a great lead-in, Shelley. We had Clarkson, thank you. Clark's actually working to oversee this enrollment, because a lot of it's taking place after school, and we had that question like, okay, these elementary kids who are actually in the program, he actually kind of is overseeing the implementation of this now. It was a little challenging this year because you have to do each enrollment. It takes a long time to do each enrollment, but they're actually streamlining it by integrating with our student information system. So that is something we're going to look into, because we do have the funding, as Scott mentioned, with ELOP funding to fund teachers to man those classrooms, to be a facilitator of that. And then we did increase the hours. We did 80 students at AK at YCUSD High School and River Valley High School. And that's the one piece of it. The other one was in the consent agenda, was the multilingual support, which they offer in every language. Any kid who needs that support.
Well, and it would be easy to do at River Valley because they have their Falcon Hour.
They have the Falcon Hour and they have the after-school tutoring this year.
So.
So, and then why was this agenda item split between consent and action?
I think because of the cost. The multilingual one was $25,000 and
So it fell under.
This one fell under a.
And it could have been incorporated into one, so. point
Either way, we
noted.
could have done it.
Okay, any other questions? Cool, can I get a motion?
I move that we approve.
Second.
A motion by member Purdy, second by member Ciocciola, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Last one, F, University of Florida Literacy Institute. No.
We continue. Now we're going to literacy.
Okay.
So we had a pilot program this year with 4 of our schools with UFly, which is a reading intervention instruction kind of a program, which has really great research behind it. Based on our iReady scores, I've talked to Araceli at King Avenue, significant gains already. I've actually watched it happen in the kindergarten classes. It is pretty amazing to see these kids like working with the UFly curriculum. So this is a professional development for our implementation of year 1 and year 2 for next year. So this is targeted from our ESSER 3 restricted funds that we just talked about, that 20% we have to use. It perfectly aligns with literacy and training our teachers. And this is for our pilot, this is for our year 2 teachers and our pilot year 1 for our new schools next year.
Cool, any questions? Can I get a motion? I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion by member Reyes, second by member Ciocciola, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Board reports, information, and discussion. No committees? Cool. Okay, communications, there's nobody from the public. Our employee representatives are not here. Comments from board members?
I'll go.
Okay.
I had the wonderful opportunity to attend 5 graduations this year. I started with early college, which was a lot of fun. Tino and I were there. It was very cold, but we actually got to wear robes, so that was a little bit better. It was, I really do honestly have very mixed feelings about 18-year-olds going off to college as juniors.
Me as well.
But I think it's a great opportunity for those kids to expand their educational opportunities. And then I got to go to a Marysville graduation because my niece graduated, so that was not YCUSD. But then Barry, Albert Powell, USC, and River Valley. So it was a very graduated year. But it was a lot of fun, and it's never, I think it's just invigorating to see all the hope and promise in the eyes of our graduates. It's amazing. So, and to see where they're going, and some of them are excited to enter the workforce, and some of them are excited to go to Cal, and some of them, there's so many options out there that they're taking advantage of. It's just really cool to see what they're doing.
I would concur. I think just quickly, to point out the 2 high schools, for me, I feel like out of the 3 years that I've attended as a board member, this will be my 4th, I don't think I've seen a class that has cheered on basically every single student like I did this year. I don't think that there was any student that did not get either cheers from the crowd and from their peers, whether they knew them or not. I just think that there was just so much happiness, camaraderie, celebration, from this year's graduating class from both comprehensive high schools, and I thought that was awesome.
I definitely wanna, oh, sorry.
No, I just said it was a lot of fun.
It was, and wanted, to all the administrators that are here today, wanna say thank you for well-executed graduation ceremonies, well-organized. I know a tremendous amount of effort went into that, and it was an honor to be a part of the 5 I was a part of.
It's the school secretaries.
Well, then they are.
It really is. That's
Right.
It's the school secretaries.
Then
They need
they're.
a round of applause.
Yes, and a parade.
Cool. Superintendent.
Yeah, no, I concur, and I thank everyone for being part of the celebrations. It's, we never know what weather we're getting, could be rain, could be heat, we just don't know. But I do think that the administrators, the staff, the families appreciate your presence there. And it is nice to remember when you see the end of a long year, all that the students accomplished. And it was notable to me that we had so many first generation graduates and also those going to be attending college. And so it was just because a lot of the work our staff put in to support these kids to make sure they're academically and socially and emotionally supported. So kudos to everyone. We are done. Summer school starts tomorrow, correct?
Yes.
And so we're not done yet. So you will see another round of summer graduates who finish their final senior year come to the board in July or August? July, yes.
Who's the summer school principal this year?
So it is Lori Whitmore at River Valley High School, and assistant principal is Esperanza. Esperanza.
So it's already this year.
It is at RV. I had to think about that.
They're painting it, I see.
Yes, they're painting, they've already started painting, doing all kinds of work. So the crew on our maintenance facilities are hustling along with IT.
Fantastic. Our next board meeting is gonna be June 25th at 7, open session will be at 7 p.m. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So motion.
Second. We have a motion by member Cianciola, second by member Pretty, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, hearing none, motion carries.